Gary Kiesler here, and it's Thursday, October the 2nd, 2025. It's about 10:15 Eastern Standard Time in America, so it's about 5:15 Israel time. Of course, in Israel, when the sun goes down around 6:30 p.m., then which would be about 11:30 p.m. here, then 11:30 a.m. here, then that would be the ending of Yom Kippur. And so we go into moving into the time of tabernacles. Symbolically, these feasts, the Feast of Trumpets, the Days of Awe, which are not really particularly a feast, but they are set up to lead into the Day of Atonement. And then the Feast of Tabernacles, they kind of flow for like the end times. So trumpets would be an alert, an awareness, to become aware of our relationship to God and our neighbors, and also our salvation, and to be watching for maybe the last trump. That's the lead into that. But then the Days of Awe are to prepare for that and to think and to make recompense, perhaps even fasting and prayer, and then the Day of Atonement, of course, when the sacrifices are made for all of Israel for the year to come, I think, and it's the time when the Jews believe your name gets written in the book of life for the next year. So we see that in the Feast of Tabernacles, the Day of Atonement, plus the letting out of the sacrifice of the two goats, which the high priest by lot has chosen. Now, remember, there's no temple in Jerusalem now, but this is a future thing too. So next year at this time, there could perhaps be a temple, which would make all these things a little more relevant. We have some other things on the sidelines here I want to talk about. The 3-1 Atlas interstellar comet, and then, of course, the changing of position, or the readjustment of the military in Donald Trump's staff, and how that could play out in the future. A lot of things coming on. I haven't given up on, of course, the rapture in this time frame today, tonight. But the sudden destruction that Jesus talks about in Matthew 24, doesn't look like it's quite as imminent as it could be. But that could mean that the rapture and all this would be at a further date, further year, further time. I don't give up on that. And then also seeing that that the goat, the scapegoat that is let out. To me, the symbolism, I never realized this before, is so strong that the goat that's slain, that's for the sin of Israel. That is, Jesus paying for the sin of the world, and then the symbolism of the goat that's let out. And again, Leviticus 16 shows us that it's not slain, it's just let go very clearly, but the Torah believes that it's actually killed. But I see the symbolism for the Gentiles in our Bible, the way that is interpreted and seen without the extra stuff of the Torah. Remember, Jesus talked about not following the doctrines of the Pharisees in Matthew chapter 16. And so we see that this symbolism of the scapegoat, just having the sins that can be done by Israel laid on the scapegoat, and he's released, showing that our sins through Jesus Christ and his sacrifice are taken as far away as possible and never really seen again. And so that I see as good symbolism there. But also I want to talk about a little bit the upcoming Feast of Tabernacles. Of course, represents Egypt, the Israelites leaving Egypt and having temporary shelters. And that talks to me about both the rapture and the escape from sin, taking up temporary shelter like the scapegoat, from sin, with Jesus being our shelter and being our covering, so that the sin that the scapegoat had and the sin that Israel had when God finally let them out of Egypt, then all that is overshadowed. All that is hidden from God, and so it's taken away from God. So I see that as an interesting time too. The time of Tabernacles coming up. Now what we've got is this 3-eye atlas, which is 3 means the third eye means interstellar comet. It's going around. It's going to be passing Mars tomorrow on Friday, October the 3rd. It probably won't have any impact as far as hitting Mars, but who can tell what the gravitational pull or an object that's traveling at 150,000 miles an hour could have on Mars. A little bit of orbit changing for Mars could impact the entire, solar system. I don't see anybody talking about that. And you got the fact that it goes around the sun. It's behind the sun. Nobody can see what it's doing behind the sun. If that it could swerve and impact the sun. It could change its own route, its own trajectory, and so it was headed out of the solar system after it passes the sun. It was going to go past Earth a little bit. Maybe that swinging around the sun will impact it. They say it's traveling so fast that the sun's gravity won't have anything to do with it. Maybe a solar flare could hit it, and knock it off. Of course, we don't know what could be happening here in the next 2 months between now and the end of December, that would impact our galaxy or even longer. The next 10, 15 years, we don't know what kind of sway this would have on, gravity and poles and orbits and things like that. And I don't see anybody talking about that. Something to think about. I'm very excited. I want to read this verses. First, I want to show you what this meteor is made out of. I did a Google search, and you have to ask this question the right way, or it will never give you any answer that makes any sense as far as looking theoretically. So I had to say, theoretically, on a chemical basis, what would happen to the ocean if 3I Atlas would crash into it? And when I did that, then it came back and would tell me, what it really thought based upon what 3I Atlas could do. If the interstellar comet 3I Atlas were to crash into the ocean, the chemical effects would be catastrophic, causing profound and lasting changes to global ocean and atmospheric chemistry. Now, that's the whole thing, but what if a fragment of that should happen to hit to the Earth, or should happen to change Mars a little bit and draw the orbits out of boundaries? That would be different too. But based on its known composition, the impact would cause severe oceanic acidification, trigger intense acid rain, introduce novel interorganic and potentially organic materials. Okay, based upon its known composition. So they know this composition, all right? So the known composition is this, okay? Immediate chemical and atmospheric effects. Based upon the comet's nucleus. The comet's nucleus contains a substantial amount of solid carbon dioxide. So what are most meteors made out of? They're made out of gas and ice and space dust, which is called plasma. So we see all that when it's combined together by electrostatic charges, makes it kind of a semi-solid mass. But this is a very high amount of solid carbon dioxide. I don't know what that means, because gas can't exist in space. I mean, ice can't exist in space, but gas can exist in space. So solid carbon dioxide, what is that? The immense heat from a hypervelocity impact would vaporize and eject huge quantities of CO2 into the atmosphere. So I'll let you post that same question on your thing. You can see what it would do as far as the acid rain. So we're talking about here things that would make, introduction of extraterrestrial chemicals. All right. So you have to ask these questions right to AI to get, good answers. But this, I think, is a good scientific answer. So let's come back to me here for a second. And so we see here, these things are something to think about and pray about and escape. These things are coming on Earth. Now, at the same time, in America, we're under a fiscal, shutdown. So a financial shutdown. And again, that doesn't make us look good. Donald Trump just called his generals in from all over the world to tell them about the renaming of the Department of Defense is now going to be called the Department of War, because like Rush Limbaugh said, soldiers are here to break things and kill people. And so that was the same line that Secretary of Defense or Secretary of War Hedgeseth said the other day, because I watched some of these remarks when he was talking about this to the generals. And really, it makes sense, and the position that Donald Trump takes is strong, and I admire that. Because you got to let people know you mean business, and he's very sincere in that. So we'll take it from there. But anyway, how does this all impact the Feast of Tabernacles? How does this all impact Passover next year? How does this all impact Pentecost when it comes around, and Jesus on that great day who said, "Let he who comes to me, let him seek me," on that eighth day of I think it was the festival of I'm not forgetting things. Anyway, one of those festivals had an eighth day, and that was when he said that verse. He was thirsty, let him come to me. So these things have to do with us thinking about what God. So from that, I want to jump over here to Job. This is a verse in Job that I like. It's a section of Job. It's not really a verse in Job, but it's if I can find this thing, here it is right here. All right, so I'll bring you over to that, and back to it again. All right, here we go. So I'm going to share this. I like this thing in Job. I just found it, accidentally, but it's a verse maybe to think about. My foot, this is Job 23. My foot hath held his steps. His way have I kept and not declined. Neither have I gone back from the commandment of his lips. I have esteemed the words of his mouth more than my necessary food. But he is in one mind, and who can turn him? And what his soul desireth, even that he doeth. For he performeth the thing that is appointed for me, and many such things are with him. Therefore I am troubled at his presence when I consider. I am afraid of him. For God maketh my heart soft, and the Almighty troubleth me. Because I was not cut off before the darkness, neither hath he covered the darkness from my face. Job 24. Why? Seeing times are not hidden from the Almighty, do they that know him not see his days? Some remove landmarks. They violently take away flocks and feed thereof. So what it's saying in here to me is that, I don't see his ways, but I do understand him. And I know that the times are not hidden from the Almighty. And why don't we see his days? Why don't we look forward to his days? Why don't we try to interpose and think of the way that day is going to be and things? But others, they steal flocks. They violently take away flocks. They steal, and then they eat those flocks. They use it for their own good. It reminds me of a lot of our systems in world governments are all bad. They're all not great. Some are better than others, but they're all horrible compared to him. And for God maketh my heart soft. And so we have to think about that. God maketh my heart soft. How do I feel about God and other people and the lost? And we have to think about things like that. And this could apply to now, because I wasn't cut off before the darkness. Neither hath he covered the darkness from my face. So we can see that. And sometimes we can think we're not cut off from the darkness, but we really are. He goes before us, it says in the 23rd Psalm. He says that in the Lord's Prayer, lead me not into temptation, but rather go in front of me, go before me, and deliver me from the evil that's coming. So, but we can look at that both ways and consider those ways, because when I consider, I am afraid of him. When we really think about it, we are a little bit afraid of God, aren't we? So we have to think about things like that when we consider times we're going through and what we're seeing in life. And I just want to leave you with that for this, and for maybe the last time of the last hours of the Day of Atonement. Of course, we might have till midnight tonight. The midnight cry might be tonight for us, because we're on a different time zone. Something to think about, and then search on your own. Search ahead. Look for the things that are coming. And God will bless you in your search, and He'll give you peace. And maybe you get to grow a beard, too. I don't know. Things like that. Not if you're a lady. Anyway, this is what I want to get back to, something that Anthony Evans said. I heard him on a sermon not too long ago. I used to listen to him an awful lot and learned a lot from him. But he said that when we get to heaven, we're still going to be black and white. So you get used to it, people. Get used to the inequalities. And I was thinking, well, that just sounds kind of bad to me. First off, I have strange concepts about that. I think that, when we get to heaven, we're going to be kind of maybe all in neutral color. We'll know each other, but, I don't think we'll have colors. But really, when you think about it, male, female, and races, that really only apply when there's a physical attraction or disattraction toward each other, which we should not have a physical attraction or disattraction to heaven. Jesus said in Matthew 19 about being, made eunuchs for the kingdom of God's kingdom of heaven's sake. Well, that is, in my mind, that goes to a very deep level of not caring about each other in any other way except the way that we relate to God and how we really love each other. And that has nothing to do with the physical sex. It has nothing to do with I don't like this person because of color or an attitude, because it won't be there. That just won't be there. So yeah, maybe we'll all look exactly the same as we do here. I don't think so. I think we'll all be probably, more of a spiritual based thing, and maybe all dressed in white robes that are so shiny we can't really see each other anyway. So when you think about things like that, I kind of disagree with that, but you have to think about that from the whole level what I just read in Job. I'm a little bit afraid of him, so whatever happens in heaven, I know is going to be not like this setup on earth. It's not going to be like this junk we have here. Totally different. And so we need to see his ways and to be thinking about his ways, to meditate on that, think on that, pray on that, and then whatever happens, it's going to happen. But I don't think we're going to be here. I know Luke 21:35 and 36. I'm always beating this dead horse, if you will. But a snare is going to come in the whole world. Matthew 24:7, nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. And then in Luke 21:36, but pray and watch and pray always that you be counted worthy to escape all these things that are coming on the earth. So I really think we're going to escape all these things that are coming. In Matthew 24:27, where he says his lightning comes from the east to the west. That's the lightning coming before the war, for the nations. That's us escaping from Luke 21. We see the same thing in Luke 17:24 about the lightning. So Jesus repeats that. All right, so that's what I have. God bless you. I hope you have a good day. Enjoy the last of the little bit of the Day of Atonement, and I hope to see you up there if I don't get to meet you down here. God bless.